Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Aparna, working as scientist in MFPI Food Quality Control Laboratory, Professor Jaishankar, Telangana State Agricultural University, Hyderabad. In the subject Principles of Food Processing, we will learn about the topic food drying and dehydration. As you all know, preservation of foods by drying is a very time-honored method and one of the most commonest methods used by humans and also by the food processing industry. Dehydration of the foods is one of the most important achievements in the human history, making humans less dependent upon a daily food supply even under adverse environmental conditions. Though in earlier times drying was dependent on sun, nowadays many types of sophisticated equipment and methods are used to dehydrate the foods. During the past few decades, considerable efforts have been made to understand some of the chemical and biochemical changes that occur during dehydration and develop methods for preventing the undesirable quality loss due to drying or dehydration. Let us see about the state of water in the foods. Let us try to understand the difference between drying and dehydration. The terms drying and dehydration are not synonymous. Dehydrated foods are the ones with not more than 2.5% water on dry basis, while the term dried foods applies to any food product with more than 2.5% water on dry basis. The concept of bound water and free water has been developed from drying principles, and it is very important for dried products for its stability during processing as well as storage. A product containing no water is termed as bone dry. However, none of the foods will have this bone dry condition, meaning that some amount of physically bound water or entrapped water will always be there in the food. Water exists in the food in different forms or states. In foods, water having properties different from those of pure water can be defined as bound water. In the literature, different forms of bound water are defined. For example, unfreezable water, immobile water, monolayer water, and non-solvent water. However, the fraction of bound water depends on its definition and the measurement technique which is used to analyze the moisture content of the foods. The binding energy of different states of bound water affects the drying process since it requires more energy to remove the bound water than the free water. Coming to the end point of drying, we have to understand what the end point of drying is. Equilibrium in drying systems is the ultimate endpoint for the process for any drying or dehydration. Water activity is commonly used to estimate the equilibrium point in case of thermal and osmotic drying processes. In mechanical dewatering, the magnitude of applied force and rheological properties of the foods affect the equilibrium point. Generally, meat, fish, dairy products are dehydrated to moisture content of less than 3%. Vegetable products up to 5%. Cereal products frequently to as much as 12%. A maximum moisture level is usually established for each dried product separately based on the desired quality after drying and during storage. Different attributes of quality can be targeted. Thus, the endpoint should be determined from all aspects such as safety first and then the consumer acceptance. Now, let us try to understand the heating methods which are present in drying. Heating air using an electric heater is the conventional heating method used for drying of the foods. In this case, heat transfer from the gas to product occurs through convection. The heating method is another important aspect of drying in terms of quality as well as energy cost. Microwave, infrared, radio frequency, refractance window and dielectric heating use electromagnetic wavelength spectrum as a form of energy which interacts with the materials, thus generating heat and increasing the drying rate dramatically. Dielectric drying uses frequencies in the range of 1 to 100 MHz, whereas microwave drying uses frequency in the range of 300 to 3 lakh. Microwave heating is rapid, more uniform in case of liquids, and more energy efficient than hot air method. Applying microwave energy under vacuum affords the advantages of both vacuum drying and microwave drying, thereby providing improved energy efficiency as well as product quality. The energy can be applied in pulsed or continuous mode. However, pulsed microwave drying is more efficient than the continuous drying. The use of electrotechnology in drying is gaining priority in food industry to improve the drying efficiency as well as the quality of dried or dehydrated food matrix. Let us now see the various kinds of drying methods. Drying methods can be broadly classified based on water removing method applied. We have thermal drying, osmotic dehydration, mechanical dewatering. In thermal drying, a gaseous or void medium is used to remove the water from the material. Thus, thermal drying can be divided further into three types, that is, air drying, low air environment drying, and modified atmospheric drying. Then, in the second category, that is osmotic dehydration, a solvent or solution is applied to remove the water, whereas in mechanical dewatering, physical force is used. Consideration should be given to many factors before selecting any drying process. The factors are: first one is the type of product to be dried, second, desired properties of the finished product, then the third one is the allowable temperature tolerance, fourth one is the product's susceptibility to heat, fifth one is the kind of pre-treatment which is required, sixth one is the capital which is involved and the processing cost, and then the environmental factors also should be taken into consideration when selecting any kind of drying method. There is no single technique of drying or no best method of drying which is applicable for all the products uniformly. First one is thermal drying. Thermal drying is one of the most widely used method of drying, and in this process heat is mainly used to remove the water from the foods. The mechanisms of moisture transfer depend mainly on the types of physicochemical state of the food materials and the drying processes. Food materials can be classified as homogeneous gels, porous material with interconnecting pores or capillaries, and then the materials which have an outer skin that is the main barrier to the moisture flow. The type or structure of the foods always play a very important role in the drying process. For this, you have to understand drying curve. As you can see in the figure 1 and figure 2 displayed on the slide, the drying curve usually plots the drying rate versus drying time or the moisture content. There are three major stages which are present in this drying curve. They are the transient early stage, during which the product is heating up, which is also called as the transient period. Then the second one is the constant or first period, in which the moisture is comparatively easy to remove. It is also called as constant rate period. Then you have the third one, that is the falling or second period, in which the moisture is bound or held within the solid matrix. This is also called as falling rate period. So there are these three major stages in any kind of drying curve. Then after understanding the drying curves, we have to understand the moisture content at which the change from the first to second period occurs, which is also known as the critical moisture content. Typically, two falling rate periods are observed for both hygroscopic and non-hygroscopic solids. The first falling rate period is postulated to depend on both internal and external mass transfer rates, while the second period, during which the drying is much slower, is postulated to depend entirely on internal mass transfer resistance. The slower rate may be due to solid water interaction or glass rubber transition. The drying behaviors of food materials depend on the porosity, homogeneity, and hygroscopic properties. The immediate entrance into the falling rate is characteristic of any hygroscopic food material. Let us now try to understand some of the drying methods. The first one is the air drying method. In case of air drying, atmosphere is used as drying medium and the heat as the different modes which could be applied for the process of drying. In this, you have sun drying. Sun drying is the one which was earlier used, where only sun energy or the heat of sun was the medium for drying. In this process, foods are directly exposed to sun by placing them on land or left hanging in the air. The main disadvantages of this type of drying are that there can be a lot of contamination from the environment, and there could be product losses and contamination by insects and birds also could be there. Apart from that, we also require a huge amount of floor space, and there is also a difficulty in controlling the heat or the temperature. Apart from that, there could be some undesired bad odors which can enter into the food matrices. When the climate is not suitable for air drying or better quality is desired, mechanical air drying is mainly used, and this is the most preferred than the sun drying. However, sun drying is the cheapest method of drying foods. Nowadays, extensive solar drying is used and the contamination could be reduced by maintaining the temperatures through solar drying techniques. Solar drying is an extension of sun drying which causes or uses the radiation energy from the sun. Solar drying is a non-polluting process and uses the renewable energy. Moreover, solar energy is an abundant energy source that cannot be monopolized. However, solar drying has several drawbacks that limits its usage in large-scale productions. There are needs for large areas of space and for high labor inputs, and there is also difficulty in controlling the rate of drying and insect infestation as well as microbial contamination. Then we have the next method of drying, that is called as in-store drying. In-store drying can also be called low temperature in-bin drying. It may be used when grains are stored until milled or sold. Weather conditions in tropic climates are less favorable for in-store drying due to high ambient temperatures and relative humidity values. Two-stage drying can produce good quality by preventing discoloration of high moisture grains and reduce the cracking of skin of the dry kernels. Then we have the convection air drying. Cabinet and bed type dryers, that is kiln dryer, tray dryer, truck tray dryer, rotary flow dryer, conveyor and tunnel dryers, they all fall into the first generation convection air drying category. This is the simplest drying technique which takes place in an enclosed and heated chamber. The drying medium, which is usually hot air, is allowed to pass over the product which has been placed in open trays. Convection drying is often a continuous process and is mostly used for products that are relatively low in value. Air drying is usually accompanied by passing air at regulated temperature and humidity over or through the food in a dryer. Factors that affect the rate of drying are temperature, humidity, air velocity, distribution pattern, air exchange, product geometry, and characteristics and thickness of the food matrices. The sample is usually placed on mesh trays in one layer or in bulk on a bed or hung from the string for better air circulation over the product. And air circulation can be horizontal or vertical to the layer or bed. However, this process causes heat loss from the dryer. In many cases, two or multi-stage drying with different conditions could be used. For example, initial drying at a temperature of 90 degrees centigrade and a second or final stage drying at 60 degrees centigrade. Then we have the next category of drying, that is explosive or puff drying. Explosive puff drying uses a combination of high temperatures and high pressure and a sudden release of pressure to flush superheated water out of a product. This method gives a product of good rehydrability. However, the high heat can degrade the food quality and the explosion puffing may compromise product integrity also. Then we have the next category of drying, that is the spray drying. Spray drying is used to remove water from a free-flowing liquid mixture, thus transforming it into a powder form. The fluid to be dried is first atomized by pumping it through either a nozzle or a rotary atomizer, thus forming small droplets with large surface areas. The droplets immediately come into contact with hot drying gas, usually air. The liquid is very rapidly evaporated, thus minimizing the contact time and heat damage. But there are some amount of disadvantages also, which include the size of the equipment required to achieve the drying is very large. Very oily materials might require special preparation to remove the excess levels of fat before the automation process. Ultrasonication in the chamber can sometimes be used instead of complex automation to produce smaller diameter droplets in the spray drying. Then we have the next category of drying, that is fluidized bed drying. This technique involves the movement of particulate matter in an upward flowing gas stream, usually hot air. Fluidization mobilizes the solid particles, thus creating turbulences on the solid surfaces, which increases the drying rate. The hot gas is introduced at the bottom of a preloaded cylindrical bed and exits at the top. In some cases, a vibratory mechanism is used to increase the contact of the product with hot gas. Fluidized bed drying is usually carried out as a batch process and requires relatively small, uniform and discrete particles that can be readily fluidized. The main advantages of fluidized bed drying are uniform temperature and high drying rates, thus less amount of thermal damage to the food matrices. Then we have the next category of drying, that is the spouted bed drying. In spouted bed dryer, a jet of heat gas enters the chamber at the center of a conical base. The food particles are rapidly dispersed in the gas and drying occurs in an operation similar to flash drying, and this works very well with large pieces that cannot be dried in a fluidized bed dryer. Then we have the next category of drying, that is ball drying. In this method, the material to be dried is added at the top of the drying chamber through a screw conveyor. The material within the drying chamber comes into direct contact with heated balls made from the ceramic or heated conductive material. Drying occurs primarily by conduction. Hot air is passed through the bottom side of the chamber, and when the product arrives at the bottom of the chamber, it is separated from the balls and then collected. Then we have the next type of drying, that is the rotary drum dryer. Rotary drum dryers are cylindrical shells with 1 to 5 meters in diameter, 10 to 40 meters in length and rotating at a speed of 1 to 8 rotations per minute. These conditions depend on product types to be dried. The dryers are designed to operate at a nearly horizontal position inclined only by 2 degrees to 6 degrees to maintain the axial advance of solids which are fed from the upper end of the dryer body. Then we have the next category of drying, that is called as drum drying. This technique removes water from a slurry, paste or a fluid that has been placed on the surface of a heated drum. The dryer may comprise either a single or a double drum. The drum drying is typically a continuous operation and care must always be taken to ensure that the product that is to be dried adheres well to the drying surface. In some cases, it may be necessary to modify the liquid product by using additives to change its surface tension or viscosity. Then we have some low environment drying techniques. The first one is vacuum drying. Vacuum drying of food involves subjecting the food to a low pressure and a heating source. The vacuum allows the water to vaporize at a low temperature than at atmospheric conditions. Thus, foods can be dried without exposure to high temperature. In addition, the low level of oxygen in the atmosphere diminishes oxidation reactions during the drying. In general, the color, texture, flavor of vacuum dried food products are improved compared to air dried products. Then we have freeze drying. In freeze drying, frozen material is subjected to a pressure below a triple point, that is 0 degrees centigrade, and heated to cause ice sublimation to the vapor. This method is used for high quality dried products which contain heat sensitive components like vitamins, antibiotics and microbial cultures. The virtual absence of air and low temperature prevents deterioration due to oxidation or chemical modification of the product. Apart from that, freeze drying also gives a very porous product which results in high rehydration rates. Then we have the heat pump drying. As you can see from the figure 4, heat pump dryer is a further extension of conventional air dryer with an inbuilt refrigeration system. Dried heated air is supplied continuously to the product to pick up moisture, and the humid air passes through the evaporator of the heat pump where it condenses, giving up its latent heat of evaporation to the refrigerant in the evaporator. This heat is used to reheat the cool dry air passing over the hot condenser of the heat pump. Thus, the latent heat recovered in the process is relieved at the condenser of the refrigeration circuit and used to reheat the air within the dryer. Then we have the next category of drying, that is the superheated steam drying. Superheated steam is used as a drying medium in this method of drying. The main advantages of this type of drying is that it can improve and provide oxygen-free medium for drying, and process steam which is available in the industry can be used without any capital cost. An oxygen-free medium has the potential to provide high-quality food products. However, it is important to generate more information regarding the quality improvement as well as processing efficacy of this method of drying. The next method of drying, that is impingement drying, which is a very old technology that has been recently applied for food products. An impingement dryer consists of a single gas jet or an array of such jets impinging normally on a surface. There are a great variety of nozzles that can be used, and selection of nozzle geometry and multi-nozzle configuration have important relevance on the initial and operating costs as well as the product quality. Some characteristics of impingement drying include rapid drying, popular for convection drying, and the large variety of nozzles which are available. Then we have the next method of drying, that is smoking. Smoking is one of the ancient food preservation process, and in some communities one of the most important method of drying. The use of wood smoke to preserve foods is nearly as old as open air drying. Although not primarily used to reduce the moisture content of the food, the heat associated with the generation of smoke also causes a drying effect. Smoking has been mainly used with meat and fish. The main purpose of smoking is that it imparts desirable flavors and colors to the food, and some of the compounds which are formed during the smoking have a kind of preservative effect due to the presence of a number of compounds. In many cases, smoking is considered as a pre-treatment rather than a drying process. After understanding the various methods of drying, it is very important to understand the pre-treatments which are to be given to the food matrices before the drying. Pre-treatments are very common in most of the drying processes in order to improve the product quality, storage stability and product efficiency. In recent years, an improvement in the quality retention of dried products by altering the processing strategy and pre-treatment has garnered a lot of attention. The first pre-treatment is blanching. Blanching is a process of pre-treatment where the product is immersed in water or steam. The main purpose of blanching is to inactivate naturally occurring enzymes which are present in the foods, since the enzymes will be responsible for off-flavor development, discoloration, browning, deterioration of nutritional quality and textural changes in the food materials. And that is the reason why blanching has to be given as a pre-treatment before any kind of drying or dehydration. Then after blanching, we have the next kind of pre-treatment, that is sulfur dioxide treatment. Sulfur dioxide preserves the texture, flavor, vitamin content and color that makes the food attractive to the consumer. Sulfur dioxide treatment is used very widely in the food industry to reduce the fruit darkening rate during the drying and storage as well as during the preservation. Sulfur dioxide, which is taken up by the foods, displaces the air from the tissue in the plant material, softens the cell walls so that drying occurs more easily, destroys the enzymes that may cause deterioration in the later stages after the dehydration of the food. Then we have the next category of pre-treatment, that is salting or curing. Salting or curing is a natural type of osmotic dehydration. Curing was originally developed to preserve certain foods by addition of sodium chloride. In the food industry, the application of curing is related to certain kinds of foods like meat, fish, cheese, etc. Today, sodium chloride and sodium and potassium nitrate are also considered as curing salts. Then we have the next category of pre-treatment, that is freezing pre-treatment. Now, freezing treatments, they affect the drying process. The rehydration rate of air and vacuum dried fruits and vegetables subjected to freezing treatment increased to a level comparable to that of freeze-dried products. And apart from that, it is also noticed that longer the duration of freezing, better the rehydration kinetics of the dried products. Then we have cooking. Cooking at different pressure levels before drying can destroy microorganisms and affect the physicochemical properties of the dried foods. The bacterial load on the final product can be reduced considerably, and the cooked product can be minced and spread evenly on drying trays with much less trouble than the raw material. Pre-cooking is used for rice, beef, fish, beans, etc. Then we have other kinds of dipping treatments. These other kinds of dipping pre-treatments with different kinds of chemicals is used in addition to blanching or sulfite treatments. The dipping treatment is a process of immersion of food in a solution which contains different kinds of additives. As you can see from the table, there are different kinds of chemicals which are used as a dipping pre-treatment. They are esters, salts, organic acids, oils, alkalis, wetting agents, surfactants, etc. After understanding the types of drying and dehydration methods and the different kinds of pre-treatments, it is also important to learn about the quality changes which occurs during the dehydration and drying process. There are different kinds of quality changes which occur in the foods. For example, the fruits and vegetables become more leathery, the dried flour or flour matrices become lumpy, etc. And to avoid different kinds of quality changes, the pre-treatments can enhance the quality attributes of the food. So, usage of different kinds of additives like anti-caking agents, anti-lumping agents, and treatments with sugars and salts also can improve the quality of the food materials. Then apart from that, some quality changes like textural changes can be avoided by increasing the moisture content and development of intermediate moisture dried foods so as to maintain the texture in the food products like fruits, vegetables, meat and seafoods, etc. So after learning about the different kinds of drying and dehydration, to conclude the topic, we have to know that drying reduces the water activity, thereby preserving the foods by avoiding the microbial growth and deteriorative chemical changes which happens in the foods. The effects of heat on microorganisms and the activity of enzymes are also very important in the drying of the food matrices. In the case of foods to be preserved by drying, it is also important to maximize the microorganism and enzyme inactivation for preventing the spoilage in the dried as well as dehydrated foods. For further information on the drying and dehydration topics, you can refer to books like Food Dehydration, Drying Techniques, Drying Methodologies, Drying Technologies given by various authors. Thank you.